So like I said, today we're going to be talking about branding and marketing specifically for small business startups. And this is brought to you by my company and the New Haven Free Public Library and I Squared and our entrepreneur residence, Giulia. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So Krative is a brand strategy and marketing agency located right downtown at Stone Co-working on Orange Street. So if you're ever there, come say hi. That's where I'm based out of. And who the heck am I? Who is this guy, right? Why am I talking to you guys today? So my name is Rick Callahan. I'm the founder of Krative. I'm an entrepreneur and consultant for a lot of folks. But like I said, Krative is my primary business that I run. And I've helped hundreds of small businesses, specifically as a consultant and advisor in every industry that you can think of, focus on their brand identity, their marketing strategies, how they position themselves in the market space. I've also helped other entities that are in Fortune 500 companies, sort of like Groupon and Barnes and Noble and things like that. But my favorite is working with folks like you that are here, the actual people we actually get to meet every day and that own the businesses around us. So what am I here for? To help you with brand marketing. So let's talk about what brand marketing is by comparing it to what I would call traditional marketing. So traditional marketing, in the minds of most people, might be a lot of definitions. Some people think marketing is advertising. Some people think marketing is sales. Some people think marketing is what you do to get information out there to sell something in general, right? And all of that is correct, because all of that is marketing in some fashion. But when I talk about traditional marketing versus brand marketing, traditional marketing is about data and interpreting that data. So this is usually when you hear people talk about, oh, my target market is somebody who's this age to that age, they have a certain level of income, and they purchase, whatever.
So it's showing up here. It's not showing up on the Zoom.
Oh, let me reshare. Sorry, everybody. 1 second.
When you changed up.
Yep. Is that better?
Give it a second. Yes, it's
Great.
Better. And
you should see
it's a little bit of a lag, but yes, it'll come up. Yep, okay. We're ready.
Apologies. So traditional marketing, to me, is kind of the boring stuff. So we're going to be doing more of the fun marketing, but to kind of elaborate the point of what traditional marketing is, to clarify brand marketing, this is the concrete, factual stuff that allows you to take calculated risks with your business. The con to this is that it's slow to respond to cultural shifts. It's ineffective with communicating with new ideas or evolving or new brands, right? So when you're talking about data and you're doing market research of trends of the past, that's traditional marketing in a sense. And the past isn't necessarily where brands are evolving to, it just reflects where they've been, if that makes sense. If there are any questions at any point, anybody in the room, feel free to speak up. Anybody online, feel free to type a chat. Giulia is going to keep an eye and let me know when something pops in to answer.
Yep.
So traditional marketing is great for sustaining established brands. So a company or an organization that may have been around for a while, right, is good for repeatable, scalable, and trainable marketing processes. Now, if we compare that to what I'm calling brand marketing, what we're going to talk about today, brand marketing is something that exists in the mind. It's subconscious, it's emotional based, meaning that it gives you a feeling, this type of marketing. This marketing is less about numbers and data and facts. It's about your interpretation of that brand. So the pro of this is that it adapts and evolves with your brand, right? Because it is brand marketing. You're marketing based on your brand itself. And basically, culture shifts, society shifts, things that we care about kind of evolve over time. And this type of marketing is usually what we'll see with bigger companies when they start changing their own position. They start doing brand marketing. They talk about causes. They talk about what they believe in. They don't necessarily just talk about what they sell. Does that make sense so far? So it's more emotional. It's more about how it makes you feel, right? And so the con to this is it's abstract, it's kind of fuzzy. It's really hard to define, even though it's what I'm doing right now, right? And by the end of today's class, through this little presentation with a couple of games, exercises included, and through the second half where we go through the workbook, the idea is you'll be very well off to do brand marketing for your own brand. Okay? Yes. So this is being streamed on Facebook, which I think will be playable later on the New Haven Free Public Library Facebook page. I'm not sure if it's something that gets sent out or if that's possible, but at the very least, it will be on the Facebook page to watch again.
Yeah, it'll definitely, and it's recording right now. There's also a transcript of it as well. So I'll be sure to, if there is everybody, here's another question. Is everybody in the cohort on Slack?
No, I heard somebody saying.
Oh, okay. Do we have your email address? Yep. Okay, so I'll make sure that everybody gets the recording and the transcripts, either via Slack or email.
Great. And just so everybody who's live streaming online, basically the question was, will this presentation I'm doing right now be available after this class? And the answer is it will be available online on the Facebook page as it's being live streamed there right now. And you can always watch this again afterwards on that Facebook page. All right, so brand marketing is great for introducing lovable brands. Now notice how the other version of marketing I talked about, it's about sustaining an established brand. There's nothing about love or feeling or emotion. Brand marketing is all about establishing a connection with your target market. And that's usually an emotional connection, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. In my mind, brand marketing is greater than traditional. And I'm a little biased because that's what my company does. So as a startup, as a small business, as someone who's not, Acme Co, what does traditional marketing look like? So if you look at the screen, we got a lot of charts and graphs and data and trends and patterns and blah, blah, blah. So if we get rid of that, that's traditional marketing. What does brand marketing look like? So brand marketing involves asking tough questions, which is what we're going to do today. And actually, I misspoke. It's not tough questions. It's a tough question. One question, repeatedly. The question, why? Okay, and so I'll explain what I mean by the question. I hear a lot of times when I work with small clients that are like getting started, or maybe they have like an employee or two, or might just be themselves, or mom and pop shop. They always tell me about they're so much better than their competitors. People only knew about them, right? The question I ask them is why? Why are you so much better than whomever that's out there, right? Or if they say, if more people just knew about us, they would pick us over whoever else. Again, the hard question is why, right? And I got a few more of these, so bear with me. I love what I do for my work. If your business, if your organization that you're running and starting here and scaling is something that you're passionate about, tap into that passion and ask yourself, why are you passionate about this, right? So as we start doing this work today, think about this question, why? What drives you? What motivates? A lot of times I also hear people say most of our new business from referrals. That's a huge sign that people love your brand. They love what you're doing. They love the value you offer, right? But the question is why? Why are they referring you? Why do they love you? And people who know us love us. That's the same concept. Why? So the question, why, will lead you to the single most important aspect of your own brand. Okay, and that is your brand's positioning. Okay, any questions so far?
Why?
I don't know if all of you online heard, but Giulia just chimed in and said, why? Well, your brand's positioning is all about the why. It's all about the core values. That's what we're going to talk about. So, good question. Thanks, Giulia.
You're welcome.
So let's define, shall we? We're talking about a lot of ideas here. So what is a brand anyway? Let's look at the boring definition first. So I like to say it's more than a logo, a lot more than a name, right? According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, brand is a class of goods identified by name as the product of a single firm or manufacturer. That's true, If you think of like the company Apple, that's a brand, Apple brand, right? iPhone, that sort of thing. If you think of what a brand was in the origins, you think of cattle, right? You think of farmers. They brand, literally with an iron, they brand their cattle with their identity, with their logo, with their symbol, with their initials, whatever it is. So they know that a certain quality and its ownership of their cattle. That's where that comes from. Hello. So that's the origins of the term brand.
Next question.
Yeah.
Just talked about Apple.
Yeah.
They make so many different things. How is it that we allot all those different Apple?
Yeah. So the question for those who didn't hear, I used Apple as an example of a brand name. And the question was, Apple offers so many different things. How are we supposed to look at the brand of Apple when they have so many different offerings? How is there consistency there is essentially what I interpret the question. So my response to that is Apple is the parent brand of many sub-brands that they have. So Apple is the organizational brand, like the umbrella in a sense, right? And underneath that, or a part of that, are sub-brands of, you have the Mac brand, which is their computer lineup, right? You have the iPhone brand and iPod brand, which comes along with the iSuite, which they used to have a lot more of those. And each of those sub-brands has a different value that people perceive, very intentionally so, based on how Apple does brand marketing. They're actually very big into brand marketing. They never talk about features. They only ever talk about how cool their product is, or how fun it is, or how innovative, or how it's going to make it creative, or whatever, right? So very good question. Thank you. So moving on from the dictionary definition, which is kind of blah, let's kind of rework that with a longer, more convoluted version of my own definition. So a brand is the culmination of all the perceived associations related to a product, service, business, person, whatever, right? Regardless of those perceptions being based on experiences in the past or expectations in the future. So just to kind of reiterate that, a brand is a culmination of how you perceive the brand. So branding is essentially what we're talking about here, right? Does that make sense? Kind of in a abstract way a little bit? We're going to do more concrete examples in a moment, but I just want to kind of plant that seed for now. Cool. All right. So moving on. What is brand positioning? That's the point of today. That's what we're going to get to with the workbook and all that good stuff. But before we do that, brand positioning, you know, defining more things. Who wants to do that? Too much learning. Let's take a little break. Let's play a game. Sound good? Great. So let's play Name That Brand. It is everyone's favorite game show gimmick. Thank you for the laughs. I appreciate it. Got to keep you awake somehow. So we have two companies, okay, and we're going to talk about their brand positioning. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to compare and contrast them to each other. And actually, let's talk about what each company does first, right? Company A is a request a ride on demand service. Sounds familiar. I think we all are familiar with those packages. You can request a ride when you want on your phone. Company B does exactly the same thing. Okay, so if we are selling what we do, these two companies are exactly the same. There's no difference. Why would you pick one over the other? The difference being the way they brand, the way they are positioning their brands, right? So let's get down to what that means. So the what is exactly the same, right? Anybody can do what they do, as many do. But how does it work for these different companies? So company A says, in their words, we pioneered this industry. Use an app with geolocation and tracking. You don't hail a taxi cab anymore or schedule a private driver. You do this ahead of time. You can do it when you need it, right? Company B says, yeah, guess what? We do the same thing. Plus, we have a pink mustache on our car, so you can find us very easily. All right, so they do exactly the same thing. One slaps a silly pink mustache on the car, the other one doesn't. All right, we're starting to see a difference, okay, but that's not exactly brand positioning, it's just a part of it, okay? So why pick them? Let's see what the difference is here. So company A says, we are superior to taxis, we're more affordable than a private driver, and you can arrive in style. So this company, this was their original model. They've since gone a little more mainstream and a little cheaper, but originally you arrive in style. Company B said, there's nothing pretentious about us. We're casual, we're fun, we're friendly, we're your friend with a car. Now these sound very different. One says arrive in style when you need to. The other one says, we're your friend with a car. Just call, just let us know, right? Very different ways that they make you feel about their brand. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? So if we look back at that, what these companies do, exactly the same. We look at the how, it's a little bit different. We look at the why, totally different. Right? And that's what we're going to do for you guys today. So a little anecdote, I don't know if you all know, but I think it's Gap, Old Navy, and Banana Republic are all the same parent company. Think of the shoppers that go to each one. Think of the products in each one. They all sell jeans. But why would you go to one versus the other? These are very different brands. And they position themselves with product and pricing and packaging and display and experience and the way they talk about the stuff and the colors they use and blah, 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 blah. All of those things create very different ways you feel about those brands. The way you perceive the value. Oh, that one's expensive. That one's cheap. That one's affordable. Or this one makes me look classy. This one makes me look casual. Whatever, right? So big companies that have multiple sub-companies do this intentionally. They are their own competitors based on brand positioning. So something to think about. Something to aspire to, right? You could be your own competitor and corner the market. That's actually a viable business model when you can get there, you know. So moving forward, were these the companies you guys were thinking?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Good
You're
job.
like, I won.
I should have let you all actually speak up on it. I'm sorry. Uber and Lyft. Lyft had the pink mustaches up front. I think they still do that. I don't know. Sometimes, right? I think they have just the sticker now. And then Uber, even based on the look of the two logos, it looks a little bit more sleek and stylish and using black and white. And Lyft is fun. A little bit more bubbly, right?
Yeah, and I want to interject for a minute
Please.
because I just want to, and especially we had this conversation just yesterday, right? Where you're looking at the font style, at the spacing, at the colors. You just said that the second one, Lift, was bubbly. It's pink, right? So when we're thinking about something as simple as a logo,
Yeah.
it really evokes what? Emotion.
Yeah. And what I would say too, this is something I say pretty often. I think Julie hears me say this at least once a month when we're talking to people. Your logo is not for you. It's for your audience. It should evoke something. It should make, in other words, it should make your audience feel comfortable with you. The other thing too, speaking of logos, I can do a whole class on logos, by the way. Speaking of logos, your logo doesn't have to communicate everything about what you do. It just has to make them feel a certain. That's it, and be memorable enough. That's it. So don't rack your brain too much on the logo. Don't worry about reinventing the wheel too much. Just get to a point where it feels a certain way. Okay. So moving forward, let's keep going with this little game here. So examples of the marketing and advertising that each company used for Uber and Lyft in the early days. Uber has this arrive in style. It's using like this almost high fashion look, right? You can imagine almost like Prada or Gucci or someone like that doing this sort of style. Like that's classy. That's like the unmarked black car you're going to reserve for a very expensive price point. But hey, it's Uber. That's cool. Versus your friend with a car. Literally looks like your friend with a car. They're both in the front seat chatting and having a good time, right? So they're evoking these emotions, trying to make you feel a certain way based on what they actually offer. Because they could just say, hey, we're an app that you can get a car ride. But how appealing is that? What makes you any better than anyone else other than price at that? So when you think about your brand positioning, it's more than what you do. It's even more than how you do it. It's all about why you do it and the value that people will perceive. Does that make sense so far? Great. Giulia, can you just check and see if there's any questions chiming in?
Yep, so no questions on Facebook.
Great.
And so far no questions in the chat.
Thank you. So if we go back to the definition that I was saying of what a brand is, A brand is the culmination of all the perceived associations of a product, service, or business, right? What that really means is in every way that you could interact with, hear about, see, listen to an ad, see a billboard, talk to a friend about a brand, every single bit of that is the brand position. The way in which somebody tries to influence your perception of that brand, intentionally or not. All of that is brand position, okay? But the cool thing is you get to be intentional with your brand position first before other people try. Okay? That's what we're gonna do. All right. One more game. Name that core value. Everyone's least favorite game show gimmick. So let's start with a simple example, okay? If we make quadrants, so two axes here, we're going back to math class. Sorry. On one side, we put affordable. On the other side, we put expensive. Okay, that makes sense. I think gradient all the way to scale from one end to the other. These will never be core values that you'll pick of expensive. You'll word it a different way, like luxury or great quality. But for the purposes of educating in this class, I'm just using the word expensive. Okay, so the idea that something could be affordable all the way over to expensive, it's somewhere on that line, right? And now, if you look at this chart on the screen or this graph, I have two blank spots on the top and the bottom. Okay, and we're gonna end up filling that in a moment. But let's start with an example of Taco Bell. Affordable, expensive. I think they're over on that affordable side, especially when you compare it to something like Morton Steakhouse, right? So you're definitely spending well into double, if not triple digits, steakhouse versus you might hit double digits at Taco Bell for yourself, right? Generally speaking.
Rick,
So,
you got a big ass forehead.
all right. Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay.
Your
So,
bald headed ass.
all right. We're going to go ahead and kick you.
Oh, don't kick me.
Rick, you really gonna let the fat kid roast you, bruh?
All right. So, moving on, guys.
Rick, that's crazy.
Cool.
My mama, stand up for yourself, you pussy.
How come there's so many?
And you see me, I stand up for myself. I ain't a bitch.
Just kick them out.
Yeah. All right.
There are actors that show up on lots of different ones. They're not too creative.
All right. How y'all doing? All right. We need to stop this. There's this over.
How do I stop?
They're still there.
I'm good. It's distracting and sensitive. All right, so we are back. So now that we had that lovely interruption, so Taco Bell, Morton Steakhouse, on the spectrum of affordable to expensive, I think is a very obvious all the way to the left, all the way to the right situation, right? Especially compared to each other. Make sense? So moving forward, let's throw in a little bit of a different dynamic on the higher and lower axis as well, okay? So I'm gonna put high quality up top and low quality. Again, nobody's ever gonna say low quality for how they're gonna position themselves, but just for the purposes of this example, we're gonna make it very easy to do. So based on that, we no longer have to go just left and right for each of these. We now get to position these quadrants up and down. So Taco Bell, probably perceived on the lower quality side down. Morton Steakhouse, we're moving that up. Make sense? Cool. So, why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because core values are essentially what drives your why. When you think of why people would want to refer anyone to you as a customer, when you think of why you are passionate about what you do, when you think of why you might be better than competitors for some reason or another, these core values, by the way, are all in the back of your
Yeah.
workbooks. We
I
have
was
all
gonna
of them
mention
there.
that.
Thank you, Julia. These words are the exact same 50-something words I've used for the last 11 years with every single branding. And it's, yeah, so it's worked very well so that we can basically spread these words out in front of people. And we talked about why do you do what you do? Why are you so passionate? What makes you keep going every day to make this a reality and to grow it and all that good stuff, right? And they're able to look at these words and pick some of them and go, you know what? Friendly, because everyone else that's in my industry is rude. They're all about the profit. I want to be friendly. Or they might be, because I do this high quality, right? I do this professionally, have more experience. Whatever it is, there are certain words here that should vibe with you as the person who is the visionary, okay? And you should be able to look at these words and make meaning for yourself with these words. So these words are intentionally vague so that you can make them make sense for yourself. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
So when I was showing you that chart, I had low quality and high quality and cheap and whatever.
Mhm.
Those aren't exactly core values. These could be core values, or you can make up your own. But these are some great starter words that usually get most of our clients to some point that makes sense for core values for them. So moving forward.
Is 4 the magic number values?
So the question is, how many core values is the magic number? Is 4 a good amount? So I typically will have clients basically pick as many as they can to start, right?
Yeah.
So that could be like 20, it could be like 30, it could be all of them, right? But then the job at that point is to start kind of combining the ones that are similar. They might mean the same thing to you. So quality and high end and niche
Yeah.
and all these things might be the same idea to some of you.
So I have to interrupt you for just 1 second, just
Sure.
to say 2 things. One is we have a question asking if you mentioned a workbook, which yes.
Yep.
And you can download it by going to, I can't type it right now because
Yep.
when I type, people can hear.
Okay.
So if you, go ahead.
So Giulia just mentioned there's a question about the workbook. So as we finish this first part of the presentation, I'm going to show you all how to get the workbook if you have not
Perfect.
already. And there's a coupon code too, so that you don't have to pay the price for it, either courtesy of the New Haven Public Library. So
Yeah.
Thank you, library.
But I wanted to say too, that if you do have the workbook
Mhm.
right now, and as you were talking about the words in the back of the workbook,
Yes.
I know we're gonna do the exercise later, but if anything resonated with you right now and you have the workbook printed out and a pencil, just kind of
Yeah.
put a
Please.
little dot next to words that start to resonate, because we're going to start going through what that's gonna look like.
Right. Yeah. Great. So just in case anyone did not hear what was said, if any of these core values or words that we're mentioning that are in the back of the workbook or that I showed on screen resonate with you, jot them down, notate them, put it in your workbook. Definitely get that process started if you can. All right, so going back to this example, I'm going to change the words. Instead of high quality, low quality, cheap, and expensive, let's use some actual words from an actual client of mine. Okay, so this is a client that I helped. They are a medical marijuana distributor in the state of Connecticut. They're one of the first. My company was fortunate enough to help one of the first dispensaries to brand themselves, and we got to help them kind of create the language that the doctors were able to do well when talking to patients about healing and hope and compassion, especially for those at end of life care. So the Healing Corner, just kind of knowing them, I'm going to give you a little example here. They were all about, well, quality. So in the state of Connecticut, it's extremely regulated, the medical marijuana side of things. So they're all about making sure that everything is extremely high quality, especially compared to what you would get not legitimately. So the other part of that for them is authenticity, right? They really, truly understood their clientele because the person who started the company was a pharmacist who sold her private pharmacy to get into this business to provide pain relief to end-of-life patients who did not want to be on opioids for many, many reasons, right? Knowing there's an epidemic over there. So she genuinely, authentically wanted to help. So it's very important to her that she came off that way with the brand. Does that make sense how we positioned that in that corner because of those reasons? Now, if we compare that against Weed for You, this is a made-up company. I just found a fake logo online, a stock logo, right? Now,
For me?
yeah, so yeah, Weed for You. So, and I'm doing this very intentionally to show something that's so completely different. Again, they sell the same thing. Now, Weed for You wouldn't necessarily be legal in Connecticut yet because we don't have a recreational facility. as yet, but let's pretend they were. Weed for you, you drive by that and get a very different feeling than driving by the healing, right? So what are you guys' thoughts? Where would this probably be in the quadrants based on these specific core values? And anyone can chime in online or in person.
Lower left,
So I heard fun, I heard
lower left.
lower
We have a
left,
fun
sounds
from
like that.
Giulia as well.
So it looks like saying that on mine, right?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay,
Or
let's go.
recreation.
Definitely fun. Definitely fun because it definitely seems more recreational and they're talking about weed for you, right? It's very also accessible,
Accessible, yeah.
right? So they're diametrically opposed in their brand positioning, even though they sell exactly the same thing, right? And so you can even imagine walking into these two environments are very different. You could probably picture one feels more like a head shop, right? You got like glassware everywhere. The other one you walk in, it feels more like a clinician's office. And you're talking to a dispensary, pharmacist, whatever they call them now. So very, very different brand positioning. Same thing. Make sense? So based on their core value of why they're doing what they are doing and their target markets and what appeals to them, and connecting with core values, you're able to kind of see how you're different than perceived competitors. Make sense?
Can
Yeah.
I just ask one question?
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're taking, are those are core values that we made up, not, are those from those sample words or not?
I believe these should all be in the sample
Okay,
list.
and so the object is to find out where your company's reputation wants to be. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah.
Where you want your company's reputation
Yep.
to land on this chart.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So the question was just clarifying with these core values and this positioning chart is the idea to kind of decide where you want your brand's reputation to be. And the answer is 100% yes, that's absolutely what we're talking about. If you can define the reputation before it is a reputation, you're doing your brand position. That's a perfect way to say it. Thank you. So moving on, branding and marketing for startups and small businesses. It's all about asking yourself the hard question, why? Why do we do that? To discover your core value. So we just talked about the core values and we're going to dive into that in a few moments with the workbook. And you also do this brand positioning stuff because it creates consistency in the minds of the consumer or the customer or the client, right? If you're able to identify your brand positioning and be consistent with it as you move forward as much as possible, people will believe that you're reputable. They'll believe that you're credible because you always show up as the same person. You don't change who you are. You're not doing a bait and switch, right? You're not just getting them in the door one way and then telling them something different, right? And it also helps with communication. When you know what you stand for, when you know who your customers are or intend to be, and you know why they care and why you care, the why, it gives you a much easier way to communicate the advertising tactics or the marketing strategies that you should use. So if your advertising, if your logo, if your brand identity doesn't match your core values, you're not exactly doing brand positioning. But if it does, you are positioning yourself strategically, intentionally, and consistently. And that's what's going to make your brand known and referred and grow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so the sample, okay.
Looks
So
like
Gabriella answered Letitia's
Yep.
question. Yeah, sample
So-
words are on page 26.
page 26. Yep. Great. So,
Can I ask another question? So,
yes,
so if you're talking about consistency, so if you have another idea and it may not fully align with other products, should you just like put that on the shelf?
yeah, that's a great question. So the question, if you didn't hear, is basically, if you're going to offer something different or new, or if you have a new idea for your business or brand, and it might be different from what you're already doing, does that change your brand? Does that change the consistency? And it's a yes and no type of answer. If you're going truly to your core values, the why, deep introspection here, right? And you're really deciding why your organization does what it does, that new stuff that you're offering should still kind of jive with the why, even if the what is different. Right? So again, Banana Republic, Gap, and the other one, Old Navy, they all sell jeans. Some of them sell khakis, some of them don't. Some of them sell, I don't know, whatever, I don't even know what they sell, but they have different reasons. They sell different things, price points, blah, blah, blah. So, and yet each one is consistent to its own brand, right? So, any other questions before we move on? Okay. So, to map your brand positioning means you need to align your target markets. So we're going to talk about that in a bit. And what target markets are, basically, are those that get your brand. Or, more important, that feel you get them. Right? So if your organization, your company, your brand is speaking the language of your core values, that means the people who hear it and truly listen to it and get it will feel like, oh man, this is the company I need to go with. These guys get it. These guys are all about what I'm about. There's alignment here. That's a target market. So the idea is to not just have customers. The idea is to have loyal fans. And that's the biggest difference with brand marketing. You're creating fans. Any questions so far on this? We're done with the presentation part. That was a lot.
We're gonna do the work part now.
Yeah, so let me stop the share. So how's everyone doing that's watching online? Any questions? If so, just type them in, or we can even chat now.
Yeah, you can unmute now if you'd like.
What,
Just raise your hand just in case there's more than one. And
what time do we have until Giulia?
we have until 7:45 and everything.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
So-
good. We have another good hour.
I'd like to give a few minutes break because we just went over a lot, if that's good with everybody. So if we can maybe pause the recording for
Yep.
3
Couple
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah. So if anyone needs to use the bathroom, get a drink of water, whatever it is, please. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
It's all good. Thank you.
It's a
Thank you.
little, it's a little quicker, I think.
Appreciate it. All right, so the brand positioning workbook, if you haven't already gotten it, I did put the link into the chat, and I'm going to just pull up the website so you can all see how to get it if you haven't already. So just give me a quick second. So when you load the link, it should bring you to a page on my company's website about the brand positioning workbook. You can just scroll the point where it says add to cart. Don't do Apple Pay if your screen says Apple Pay, because it won't let you do the coupon code. So do add to cart. And then when that loads, you can add the coupon code Krative BIP 2022 and apply that coupon, and you'll get it for free. So it should take off the full price, and then you can just proceed to checkout, and it'll send you a downloadable PDF. And that should do it. Hopefully that worked for everybody. Anybody have any issues with it or questions? Put a chat in, and hopefully maybe Giulia can try to troubleshoot along the way. But I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and start talking everyone through the workbook.
And we're on record again, and we are still live
Yes.
on Facebook as well.
Great.
And we have a few people on Facebook, so if you have questions, let us know.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you. All right, so let's get started with the workbook. So I'm sure many of you have already gotten access to this. Some of you have not. That's okay. I'm going to go through this as though none of you have actually looked at this yet, knowing that some of you already have gone through at least a few pages. That's fine. So this downloadable PDF is an interactive one. If you have like a tablet or a phone, it's one that you can actually like write in on that device, click buttons. So that's what these buttons are on the side that you see if you are doing it on a digital device. Otherwise, you're welcome to print it out. It'll fit on 8.5 by 11 regular sheet of paper too. So you can print or do it digital. Anyway, moving forward. So I firmly believe that the best thing you could do to grow your business is to clearly communicate value. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to know your brand positioning as soon or as early as possible while building your business, building your brand, right? Moving forward, brand positioning, if you really want to break it down, is just about providing clarity. That's it. You're just trying to convey the value of your brand and trying to allow people to perceive it a certain way. One of our attendees here had a great way of saying it. You're basically defining the reputation of the brand. I'm going to start using that. Thank you. All right, so here's what we're going to learn by doing the brand positioning. You guys got a little head start with that presentation we already did. But basically, you're going to learn about your brand's core values with this workbook. That's the biggest part, I believe. The why of your brand, we've already started talking about. How you intend your brand to be perceived. How to convey your brand's value proposition through framing. We'll talk about what that means. Where your brand is positioned in a competitive landscape. So that we already saw an example of that with that grid and like Taco Bell and whatever. And how you can make strategic decisions utilizing your brand positioning statement. That's where this is going to lead us. Okay, so here's the process at an overview. You have 4 main steps. We talk about the what, we talk about the how, we talk about the who, and we talk about the why. So we're going to go step by step and do this together. So I fully expect anyone online who has the workbook and is doing this for themselves or their own brand, or anybody here with the workbook, feel free to chime in. This is an interactive session. I do not plan to lecture the whole time. I want this to be a collaborative session for everybody. Okay, so we'll take turns talking about each other's brand. Does that sound good? Great. Got a bunch of nods. Excellent. So moving forward. Well, actually, little fun facts. I think I mentioned earlier, normally I put core values out in front of people on a table. That's what that picture is. That's me doing the exercise with a bunch of cards with 1 word on each. And I have people pick the core values themselves that way. You guys just happen to have a handy workbook that has all the words in the back. All right, so section number 1, the what of your brand. This is going to be tricky because I'm not asking you to answer with a sentence. I'm asking you to answer with 1 to 2 word phrases, which hopefully come from the words or the core values that are listed in the back of this book. So if you guys are looking at your brand positioning workbook, there's a page that says sample words. If you go to that, page 26, it's got like a gray background with a whole bunch of words on it. These are some words to give you inspiration. These are every single one of the core value words that I put in front of my clients that you guys can use as inspiration. You do not have to use exactly these words. You can change them to your own if you'd like, or you can use them how you wish, as you see. So going back to that what, almost there. What does your brand do? So what I'd like you to do is to list as many adjectives or verbs, so things that describe something or actions that tell what your brand does. And so if anybody has struggled with this, please speak up. Let's do it together. That's why we're here today. I already see some nods in the room. I don't know if the way you want to speak up and we can chat about yours. Okay, just speak a little loud so those.
Yeah, so I guess from mine, because my business is fully enterprises, which is an acronym, ownership, blessing, entrepreneurship, Gambale, just for those who don't know, that's God. And the whole purpose behind my brand really is to teach people about, introduce them to the mindfulness lifestyle and how I practice, which is saying affirmation, actually meditate, and thinking positive. I'm doing that from positive statements. So our designs are basically going to be meditation, mindfulness theme with a positive affirmation on the front and on the back, so they can live that mindfulness affirmative lifestyle. So I think one thing that we will do as a brand is definitely to inspire and educate, because I think my target market, based off the research that I've done, are people who have low self-esteem. So if they have low self-esteem, having a positive statement on their shirt that they have to see every single day when they put it on, that's going to inspire them to, say, oh, I am great, So I think we're going to inspire them and also educate them on the power of positive.
That's fantastic. So you already have at least
Like at least two
right
words
there.
right there.
Right.
I want to make sure I was on the right path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is Very well said. So I just want to check, can those of you that are listening online hear what was said right there? If you can give a thumbs up, thumbs down, kind of thumbs up. Okay, I see one thumbs up. Great.
Yeah,
I
the
saw a
computer
nod.
can hear it, transcript there, but like, yeah, perfect,
Excellent,
thank you.
Just wanted to make sure. So yeah, those examples you gave, inspire or inspiration, however you want to word it, it's fine. This is very subjective rate.
Okay.
It's probably a perfect one to write down, right? Education, perfect to write down. And so what I'd like you to do is fill out as many as you can on this page. And some of them you might not feel as strongly about. That's okay. We're just trying to get the ideas out right now. We're going to come back and refine them later. Does anyone else want to talk through their core values, or at least how it relates to their what they do? Anybody in the room or anybody online? Sure. Just speak up if you.
Oh, sure. I'm speaking through a mask, so.
Yeah.
I'm a scientist by training, and I want to get people excited about science. So I want to create a greeting card business where I do science and I can have inspiration. That's science. What I want to do is I want to make science exciting. There are a few greeting cards that are out there that do have some science in them, and they're full of puns. There are some recurring memes, and I have some things that I kind of want to provide so that people will feel more attached to.
So did you already start writing some down there for your what?
Yeah.
You want to share those?
I have friendly. I want them to be approachable. A lot of people write science cards and they want to show how smart they are, but I want to show people how they already know these things, or
Okay.
just give them another layer to see the world.
Yeah.
I want to translate. I want there to be joy. I want there some simplicity. And I have engaged and inspired.
Great.
So you have a lot of words
Yeah.
Well, there's a big list,
already, yeah.
There's a big list. So I
Right,
think,
and you were able
I
to.
think these words are.
and I work with.
Sure. Let's get the homework.
Yesterday, I didn't have this.
Gotcha.
Just so you know.
Okay. So some of these words, as we move forward with the next couple of sections, I feel like you might be moving some closer to your why. And Kobe, I think you might as well.
Okay.
So the what is tough because I have abstract words. You're trying to say something literal, kind of hard to do, and that's okay. But the point is, you're already, both of you that spoke, gave very good why example as well of why you're doing this, who you're trying to. Both spoke to that without being prompted. So that's fantastic. A lot of times people will come back and go, greeting cards, fashion, clothing, shirts, right? That's the literal what, but you're going already beyond that. You're already going into who it's for, why they might like it, what is it you're trying to accomplish with it, right? What sort of perception are you trying to create? So you're already moving to the why. So you're already a couple steps ahead, which is fantastic. But just keep that in mind as we move into steps 2 and 3, that some of these you might migrate over there. Okay. Anyone online chiming in, want to talk, speak up about their what?
Yes, I make a body butter. I've been doing it for a few years now. And so my core values are natural, local, affordable, and beauty. And there's a broad field. There's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I'm coming from with that.
So who is speaking? Just so I know who's
Giulia.
Giulia. Okay, thank you. So you have perfect what core values that you just shared. So if I remember, you had some of them that I can remember. Natural. What were they again?
Local, affordable, and beauty.
Great. So some of those are going to be very easy for others to say, oh, we did the same, right? Like some people can say they're affordable. Some can say beauty to an extent, right? As we move into the next steps, you're going to start differentiating yourself with the how and the why and who. So I think you have a very great start for this first section, and I think those are perfect examples. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else want to chime in? Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Or are disabled, and without part of the regular community.
Yep.
And there are Zoom calls that are not authorized. A creative side and also class on
Yep. Yep. So based on that, what sort of words were you thinking or what?
Do you want to summarize that?
Yep. So I'm just going to repeat a little what I'm hearing here so they can hear. Thank you. And we'll come back and I'll give you some feedback. So what's being said is that one of the attendees here has a company, an organization, online kind of community that, what's that? Thank you. Nice to meet you. So I'm just trying to be sensitive to names. I don't know how that works on here. So they have an online community where they're basically trying to help folks not feel so alone, maybe have some unity aspect going on for them. And she was sharing the words that she wrote down for core values for the what. Do you mind sharing those one more time?
Friendly, creative, brave, accessible, powerful.
Are you checking those? Okay, thank you. All right. So those sound great. I think you also have a mix of some of your why in there, which is good. It's good. It means you're already ahead of where you need to be, which is great. Because the next couple steps you've already got. So, but you also have the what. I don't know if community is one of the words you want to write down, but that's okay. Yeah, because that's like the most literal what, right? So that's fine for the what. Okay, so does the what make sense so far? What we're talking about, the examples, does anyone else want to talk about theirs and maybe get some help?
Yeah, Jordan actually had typed hers into the chat.
Oh.
So Jordan, I don't know if you want to
Jordan, yeah, do you want to speak up to yours?
Hi, I don't have a minimal viable product yet, so I'm still
Okay.
in the business planning phase, but I put at, oh, well, actually, so the name of the brand would be Politigals.
Okay.
And the idea is that it's an online community for women and allies to essentially come together to foster political change and become empowered, with the goals to either run for something or create some type of impact, whether that learning how to write policy. The basic idea is that a lot of people feel disempowered by the current political system. And the goal is kind of to build a leadership pipeline. So people can come from all walks of life. You don't have to like come from a silver spoon background or Ivy League background to, be valid, to be in the political sphere. And we would take people from wherever they're at and we build everyone up with like an online curriculum, community building, skill building. So the words I came up with were community, leadership, patriotism, friendship, fun, and dignity.
Yeah, I would also, I think those are perfect. And I would also add a few for you as well. Letitia, I see you raised your hand. One moment, we'll get to you. So I would also add in accessible or something along those lines. So I think you have it with community, but you brought up the idea that no matter your background, no matter your education, no matter silver spoon or not, right? You can be a part. You can be empowered, right? I think that is probably some aspect you want to bring into somewhere in whether it's your what, your how, who, and why. But definitely when your core values seem accessible, I would definitely give you that. And Letitia, did you want to speak to that, or did you have something else you want to explore?
No, I was going to talk about my business a little bit.
Sure.
I am a collab graduate, but initially my business started off as a professional interior design and professional organizing business. But after like a year of some webinars and stuff, I decided to scale it to be professional interior design and professional redesign, not professional organizing, not like a home edit business. I changed my mind. So I did use some of the words, and I think that's the hardest thing, is to convey that interior design should be accessible. You shouldn't have to be wealthy. If you get the professional service, it actually saves money because you have someone who is the person working with different, business products, whatever. And I
Right.
think sometimes conveying that there's just this perception that is for the wealthy.
Mhm.
So I did use your list, which was great.
Okay.
And, I thank you for that. So that's all I was going to say. If you have any other ideas.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some of the words that you chose, if you wouldn't mind sharing, for the what?
I think I used, hold on, I have to take a holistic approach when establishing a relationship with the client. Establish a niche business. I also have inspirational spaces created and quality in terms of service. And I also used genuine in terms of and integrity in terms of my business practice and transparency with budget.
Mhm. Cool.
And there's a few others, but
Yeah, thank you for sharing those. So I think some of those that you use specifically will be in the how, especially when it comes to the integrity.
okay.
So just keep that in mind as we move into the how section. The what is definitely going to be more about the create side of things, the creative spaces, the more literal what it is you're offering. And then the why sounds like it's definitely going to be that accessibility aspect, that this isn't something that's just for the bougie people, right? That this is for anybody, right? And it could even provide immense value. I think those are going to be closer to your why as we get there, based on how you.
Okay.
Would that make sense for you, you think?
Totally. I think I might have went on the wrong page. But yes.
It's all good. All right. So I'd like to move on to the next section, if that's good with everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
When Letitia was speaking, I know it's completely different, but it reminded me of design within.
Mhm.
And that's what she was kind of conveying, that, okay, this is not dingy stuff, it's within something accessible. So
Yeah.
that title was taken, but that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Letitia?
No, I didn't.
Do you want to try one more time a little louder? Do you mind? It's this one.
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. You know what, maybe if I can put this a little bit more in the middle.
Letitia, this is just one of your colleagues. You reminded me of design within reach. They don't do interior designs, but it was just that accessibility to really high-end stuff that you now have an entree in. I mean, we can't use that title, but it was just something that just came to mind right away when you were speaking. I thought that might be useful.
And it's called Design Within Reach?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll write that down. Thank you.
Check them out.
Yeah,
See what they're about. See how they position themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I agree
Thank you.
very much.
yeah.
Yeah.
So two things as well. You brought up a good point right there, where there was a similar business business kind of model that sounded like what Letitia, you're trying to convey. It's okay, and actually good best practice to look at what competitors do as
Yep.
well, and how they position themselves as well. Oh, we get into that?
In fact,
Oopsie.
that's literally the next thing.
That was a setup.
Julia, we couldn't have planned that better. So the next step I want to talk about, you guys just talked about what you do, and you challenged yourself to do this in an abstract way. You used those words I gave you.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you going through that kind of difficult exercise. But the fact that you thought of it in kind of an abstract level allows you to now kind of think about who else does these things in some way, right? Who else does the what that I do? And what I'd like you to do in this section, 1B, sorry, we have a subsection. I won't have too many of those, I promise. In this section, who else solves the same problems as you or provides a similar value in the minds of the customer, based purely on the what, not the why, right? And so some examples I have down at the bottom. It's kind of small wording, but I'll zoom in a little. So you might just say things like, let's say that you're a contractor and you work on roofs, just a generic example, okay? General contractors might be a perceived competitor to you because they could also do roofs. The value is totally different because you're a specialist and you're not, but technically in the minds of the customer, competitor, right? DIY on YouTube, right? That might be a competitor because the person could just go on there and figure out how to do it themselves, right? So we're trying to be a little bit creative of who might be seen as a potential competitor, even though in your mind, they're really not, or at least not fully, right? So on this page, the idea is to write down perceived competitors that may solve similar problems or provide a similar perception of value. And I'd love to hear anybody who wants to share or talk through this for themselves. Tell me what you do and who might be some perceived competitors for yourself. Yes, behind me.
I do gift wrap paper.
So custom gift baskets and gift wrap paper, gift custom. Yep.
I think edible arrangement.
Okay.
It's a gift.
Yep.
And
So edible arrangement is a potential, I would agree, perceived competitor. Yep.
Stop and Shop, Stop Right. Anyone who sells gift items.
Gift stores, Stop and Shop, anyone who has a flower department, right? Anybody who has gift baskets. Yeah. Okay.
So, when I thought about what it is.
Yeah, and it's okay. And hopefully this is not too overwhelming to think of these at this point. The idea of this is to actually have as many as possible. So at the end of this, we could say why you're different and in some ways better than all of those for the right target market. So if you do have more and more you think of, that's actually better for you for your brand position. Okay, it just makes, yeah. No, those are perfect examples. Yeah.
Okay, and then Jordan has examples in the chat as well.
Jordan, would you mind speaking up again on that? Do you mind?
Hi, yes. I put them in the chat. So something very interesting happened in my situation.
Okay.
And sharing so other people can learn from it. I came up with my idea in 2016, and there's been a number of reasons why it's taken me this long to launch, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, in 2016, there were only like 3 main competitors. Now it's flooded. So I listed 5, but literally I was on Snapchat just like as a user. And I guess because I'm trying to build this business, and as you know, like everything you Google is, I guess, like searchable by all the apps you use. So somehow or another, Snapchat knew that I was interested in like running for public office or like looking for women's groups that promote that. And so they bombarded me with like 5 groups that all do this. So now there's a bunch of people in the market. So it's very interesting. I don't know how I want to handle that, but
yeah, that's a very interesting problem, right?
Right.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying that I think the lesson is if you have an idea and you really believe in it, you should move on it quickly.
Yeah, that's a good lesson.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, right? But also in the same vein, as I was just saying a moment ago, having a bunch of competitors, even if they do exactly what you do, there are still reasons why yours is going to be unique. And that's the point of the brand positioning, right? Is to figure out what is that unique factor. Sometimes it might not be that crazy different. It might just be you're the only local version of that. Or you might be the only version that is predominantly serving a certain population, right? So it might be women of color, for example, right? Or it might be, I don't know, LGBTQ folks or whatever, right? There are different ways you can kind of niche down, as we call it, to make it a specialty version of what is the generic version that everyone else does. So not that you have to do that, right? But that's something you can consider. Either way, the fact that you were bombarded with like 5 or 6 or 7 bajillion competitors, you can place those into a chart that is at the end of this workbook, and you can figure out where are you going to be different than them. And that is what you sell in your brand positioning, in your marketing, your advertising. Yes, you are a political-based, community-oriented action group of sorts, right? And you're trying to elevate people to be able to be empowered and do stuff and make positive change. Sure, other places do that. But I'm sure the simple fact that you have a certain region is plenty to start with. And then what else makes you unique? Work with that, you know? I hope that helps.
Yes, I think one thing that makes mine unique is that I'm including allies. Most of them are just women. So women allies kind of really expands it to really anybody that aligns with a certain political viewpoint on advancing women.
And I think that's great. And another thing that you might see in your realm, in your industry, so to speak, is you might have certain positions that as an organization you might lean towards, that you might lead with that in your statements, that might be putting your message in. So think about what it is that benefits those that you're serving and what position they take politically on certain things. And maybe lead with some of that too, because that's also going to further differentiate. Okay. Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else want to speak to who else solves similar problems, competitors? Please.
Well, Hallmark, nursing greetings.
Yeah.
Hallmark, like who are they?
A third grader.
Macaroni art.
That's right.
So if you guys aren't hearing, this is the science affiliated
Science
greeting cards. And the competitors were like, oh, Hallmark and American Greetings, Etsy, third graders, as you said.
Third graders, Chronicle books.
Yes. So those are great examples. Full list, it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There's pomegranate, handmade cards. There's e-cards now.
Yep. E-cards.
Pop-up cards. are
Pop-up.
popular.
Yep.
And then Etsy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think what's going to be interesting is how you handle the next 2 pages.
Yeah.
Surprise.
You got the science need.
Yeah, I got the
Right.
Yeah.
So that'll help. So we'll get there.
So
Okay.
just really quickly,
Yes.
is anybody having an issue with understanding who their competitors might be? As we've had some that have given examples, they know who they're like the realm of where their competitors are. Is anybody having problems with maybe not knowing what the realm of competitors are? And we can do a little bit of brainstorming with that. We'll
Yeah.
take a little time with that.
So because Piers is unique, so we want to know if this was a reach, so because she wants to do a community, there's obviously gonna be like social media,
Right.
those are obvious. But I think we should include like places like here, like community programs.
Mhm.
So community programs,
Yeah,
both
like the
online and in
Y.
person.
And,
Yep.
the why.
So then take those as a group is what Julie
Right,
is trying
so
to
that's
get.
what
Yeah.
the community program,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And that would include like maybe the why and you know how the cities have like recreational.
Recreational.
That's all
Yeah.
like in there together.
Yep.
And then what about family?
In what way?
Trying to serve the community or no? Like, do we say that's gonna
That's
be?
tough because a family is not really a brand. You could have family values as a brand, but a family itself, like.
Like, could be a
Competitor?
competitor,
Yeah.
so no, yeah,
I would,
because you can't even compete, no.
Yeah, I would think it would be more like,
institutions, organizations.
yeah, more
places,
institutions and organizations that are.
Okay.
apps, whatever,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, apps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom itself, I don't know, like. Yeah. So I don't know if you all could hear that, but for the online community, that helps bring people together that might be lonely and need companionship and just things. They were trying to think of groups of competitors, one being like community programming. And so we decided that community programming as a group makes sense rather than naming each and every single one.
And what about those places where you could like purchase a class? I don't know how to classify that. Like online learning,
Like e-learning stuff.
different one, yeah, like there's that one, there's like,
So it's like LinkedIn Learning, there's
there's a ton
a
of
ton of
them,
them, right? Yeah.
There's
would-
like different-
But again, I would say grouping,
Yeah, just group it as like,
that would be different than like social media.
yes.
yeah,
Cause
for
those
sure.
are like going, like actually like paying.
Yep. So for that one, I would recommend just learning.
E-learning.
as the
E-learning,
example
yeah.
Versus social media versus the
Okay.
others. Yeah, those are great. Cool. So I'd like to move forward into the next sections because we have only a little bit of time
I
left.
know.
We're doing great, but a lot to go. So the how. Okay, so I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on the how. I'm gonna go right to the why after this. But the how is the same ideas as the what, except now you're starting to talk about process or what you do that's a little bit different than the competitors you just wrote about. Okay, so if you think about all those competitors you just talked about, just wrote about, their how is probably a little different than your how. for some reason or another, see if you can come up with those reasons and write them down here. If possible, I like to try to challenge people to do 1 or 2 words. And again, you can use those core value words as inspiration. But that's basically it. Just come up with the how of your brand here. This is where you're going to start seeing the difference. So for example, the greeting card company we were talking about, that's the science-based one. The how there is definitely the science side of things.
Yeah.
Right? So that is unique for sure. And if there are competitors that do exactly that, well, there's probably not as many as there are that do general, cards. if that
Narrowing
makes
it down
sense.
at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so we're starting to specialize. We're starting to define the uniqueness. Does that make sense? Are there any questions on that aspect for the how? Yes.
When you talk about, when you have a product, when you have a product that is not, because I got so many products that I did that.
Yep.
That feeling of finding part.
Yep.
What did that feel so deep in promoting the product? Something like that. The how do I-
Yeah, so the question, so everybody knows, has to do with the gift basket, personalized gift basket and personalized gift wrapping brand. And how do you really make it unique when you have so many different things you're incorporating into these gifts? I think it's, if you look at the way you choose what goes into these gift baskets, how do you personalize them? It's going to be different than how someone else who also makes gift baskets personalizes them. For example, some people might have themed gift baskets and they only work in that theme. You could very easily have science-based gift baskets only, right? Don't do it. Or partner with somebody. Or you might decide that, you know what, your approach, your process of just defining and deciding what goes into a gift basket is based on an interview with somebody, right? Your process is a big part of your how. And so that process, that how you do it is going to be unique simply because you do it a certain way that someone else doesn't, right? So your deciding factors of how you decide what goes in is going to be a big part of your process. And if you could sell what makes that different from someone else who does the same thing, that's what's going to make you unique. Does that help? Yeah. Great. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to move forward into the next section unless anyone wants to stay here for a quick moment on the how. I don't see any.
Does everybody understand the how?
I think that one's the most.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
All right. Now this is where I think it starts getting a little fun. Oops. Is that okay?
Guys, quick question. The how is just literally how you go about achieving your goal.
Yeah, it's how does your brand do what it does, whatever what it does is. So your what was the first question. How do you do that? How do you do the what? How do you get to the what? And you can also think, if you're having trouble with that, you can also think the competitors you listed, you probably do the how a little differently than them. So try to think of that. What's that difference? Does that help? Hopefully so.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
So the next section, number 3, is who does your brand serve? Now, early on, I mentioned if you're building a brand identity, which a big part of that is your colors, your font, your logo, the look and feel, all that stuff, it's not for you. It's for who you serve. It's supposed to appeal to those you're trying to serve, right? So if you think about who you are making this for, this brand exists for, who are they, right? Write them down. And I would challenge you, if you can, to try to use some of the words in the back. I know it's going to be impossible when you're really trying to define something literal, like students or moms over whatever age or whatever. But you might want to qualify them with some of the words in the back, like, for example, moms who care about quality, or students who care about affordable, or whatever. So does anyone want to speak through who their who is? I know some of you in person here have already talked about that, and a couple of you online have already kind of mentioned it with your what. But now is a good time to elaborate if you'd like, or if somebody who hasn't spoken would like to. Did you speak up yet? Did you? No? You good? Just checking. Okay, great. So for those who couldn't hear, this brand is for codependents and addicts. And so that's a very specific segment of the market you're going after. Can I ask what it is? Apparel. Okay, great. So it's apparel that I'm assuming will assist in creating a certain mindset and bringing direction. Is that the idea, or? Yeah, basically, I love it. Yeah, so it's kind of a lifestyle brand in one way, right? But it's also like a support system in a way too, right? So I'm not sure what parts were heard, but basically it's essentially a brand which is kind of a lifestyle brand with clothing items, for example, which might have material on it, designs on it that are going to inspire, help, and motivate in a way those who are struggling with or addiction or trying to stay sober or whatever it is. So I think that sounds fantastic. Yours is very clear cut who you're serving. You may consider breaking that down a little further. I don't think you have to, but if you're going to look at other competitors, if there are any you're concerned about being too similar to, you might define your market a little bit more, right? So maybe those who are some ages, those who are reentering society, or those who are whatever it is, right? Whatever segments that are part of that you can see, maybe think through that a little bit. Sound good? Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Anybody online that's watching live want to chime in on their who? All right, seems like we're good. So I'm going to move forward. Great. The why. This is the fun one because it's the hardest one. Although I think some of you are actually already there. So the why. We've talked about this a little bit. I see Jordan added in more person to the chat. Thank you, Jordan, for being on top of the texting part. So the who, women, girls, and allies, which you did share earlier. So thanks for elaborating there. So going back to the why, section 4. If any of you have not seen the video Start With Why with Simon Sinek, I highly recommend going on YouTube or Googling it. He could say it way better than I can, the idea of the why. It's like a 5-minute video. I'm not going to bore you to death right now with it, but when you have time, please watch it. It is referenced in the workbook. If you do have the workbook digitally, you can click it in the PDF and it'll open the YouTube video. So anyway, the idea of the why, we did talk about this a bit already, but for you, this is where you definitely want to use the core value sample words if possible, or create your own from them. So list as many single words or 2-word phrases with adjectives, nouns, verbs, or whatever to talk about why your brand. Why would people choose it? Why do people want to do business with you? Why would an ideal client refer people to you? Right? All these hard why questions we talked about earlier. Why do you have passion for what you do? These are your whys. This is where I want you to fill out as many as you can. There might not even be enough spaces on the page. Just that's fine. As many as you can. Yes.
Can you explain how you're differentiating between the why and the what?
Yes. So the question is to please elaborate or differentiate between the why and the what. So the what is a literal thing that you offer or do. So again, going back to like Apple, they sell computers and technological consumer products. That's it. That's all they do. And they have services that go along with it. But if you ask them what they do, they'll say, we believe in creativity and innovation and empowering everybody to have a stylish, simple device that everyone can use to be creative, blah, 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 blah. That second part is the why.
Okay.
That first part, we sell computers and stuff and phones. That's the why. Does that make sense? So one is very literal and get it. The other one, you kind of have to like go with them on an emotional journey. Right?
Yeah,
So the
like
why.
when somebody asks you what do you
Yeah.
do, and you say it, and then they look at you, and then you have to explain
Yeah, exactly.
practically exactly
Yeah,
what you do.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
that happens with my business.
And that's
weird.
it's the perfect word, right? The what is usually the practical.
Okay.
Right. So gift basket, custom gift baskets, and custom wrapping. That's the what. But anybody can do the what. Anybody can copy your what. They can even try to copy your how a little bit. But your why Why do people refer you specifically? Because you give that extra attention to detail, because you're so personalized, you get to know the person.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's that emotional connection that you get to a brand, right? Why do you love the brand? Right? If you, and remember in the very beginning, we had talked about when people say, I always go to this person, I always get gifts from this company. Because what? Maybe there's some practicality to it, but there's always that little something. Even when you raise your prices, right? You're still like, you know what? I like them so much, I'm gonna pay the extra dollars.
So just to kind of give a personal anecdote to what Giulia is saying right now, when I started my first business, it was kind of like a freelancer. I was a teenager, right? So it's 20-ish years ago. So at that point, I was very insecure. I didn't know what value I offered. I was a designer. I just made any design for anybody who needed something. A logo, sure. Business card, sure. Website, sure. Whatever it is, right? And I charged very little. It was definitely not a full-time job worth of income. But it took me years to realize that, oh, the reason people like coming to me is because I know why they need certain things for design. So they need a website to get more customers because they don't know how to articulate what they do. Oh, I can help them figure that out. So they'll pay for the why a heck of a lot more than they will the what. And they'll refer you a heck of a lot more for the why than the what. Because the what is a commodity, which just means anybody and everything can offer that thing. But when you specialize, or you're uniquely positioned in the market space, or people truly understand your value that you're offering, then you become a unique experience and positioned brand that people go, oh, you have to go to her. Oh, you have to go to him, right? And that's what we're talking about here. This why is that reason they have to know about you.
So it's very likely that I will have to go back to my what page and take some of those out and move those to the why.
Yes, I think usually a lot of people on their what page, especially when they're passionate about what they do, the first thing they do is, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing this. This is great. I love doing this work. This is amazing. And then they do the what. So if you did that, go back to your what page, look at what you wrote there, because some of those are probably actually part of your why, and rewrite that on your why page if you have space. Maybe even write it in your own wording if you need to, like change it to your own language, because that's what we're doing here. We're trying to get from the literal what to your version of your brand that we can translate to the target markets, right? So just because of timing, I'd like to push forward a little bit. We only have about 9 minutes left. So moving forward, this is where I would say take a break, but we don't get to. We're moving straight through.
Yeah, we took a break earlier. We're good.
So this page is just recapping what we already talked about. Basically, to understand your brand's unique value proposition, you got to know your what, you got to know your how, you got to know who it's for, and you got to know why, right? And that's exactly what we just talked about. So as you guys work through that, you have all the pieces for your brand's position and unique value proposition. You can use this interchangeably. So I'm going to move forward. How does one position a brand? We did this earlier when we did those silly little games, right? When I had that silly voice and all that stuff on the screen. So when you position a brand, you're really doing what we call framing. Framing is just a technical term or marketing term for comparing and contrasting things that are similar but different. So, for example, I have an example in the workbook about Acme Co. has proudly created a new drink which was designed to provide energy with low sugar and great taste. That's the what, right? This could be framed as a healthier soda or energy drink. Okay, so that's now we're getting into like, how do we frame this? How do we position this? Or this could be framed as the more scientifically proven sports drink for the athletes than others on the market. So better than Gatorade, better than Powerade, better than vitamin water, better than whatever, right? Notice how that each of these examples are framed based on the context of who it's for, the athletes or not, right? How it works, low sugar, you know, healthier, whatever I said there, features, and why it exists. It's, you know, it's designed for that purpose of low sugar, high energy, great taste, right? So you have all those pieces in there, and it allows you to frame it and compare it to other things. Does that make sense? So they have options of how they can position themselves, and you do too. Okay. So Oh, boy. I don't know what that was. Oh, that's because we did that in person last time on the.
Oh, we did.
That goes away. Boop. Okay, so when you're in your workbook and you're on page 14, guys, ladies and everybody, we have quadrants, just like I had on the screen before. You can use the one in the workbook, or you can make your own on a different piece of paper if you don't have it. But what I have on screen here, I've already put some words in here that are not in your workbook, because this was an example from the core values that people had in their why. Okay, so if you go back to your why and you look at your strongest one that resonates most with you, take that one and put it in the yellow highlighted spot on page 14. So if you're looking at my screen, I have the word personalized there because that was the example from the last time we did this class. Does that make sense? So you're going to go back, look at your whys, pick your strongest one, and place it on that left side of the horizontal line. Does that make sense? Any questions? Any confusion there? Okay. And what you want to do on the opposite end of that is go look at your competitor. What word might they pick that's going to be against that? Because they're going to be different than you in some ways, right? So if you're going against like an Amazon, Amazon's about cheap and quick, right? If you're going against a community program, you're probably maybe, I don't know, a little bit more accessible or more directly connected or community, or whatever it is, right? There's a difference. If you are a greeting card situation, you're not Hallmark because you're not generalized, you're specialized, right? So they might say they're generalized or they're broad or they're generic or whatever, right? So put a word that is not the same as your word, perhaps even the opposite than your word, that your competitors might like across from yours. Does that make sense? It's kind of a tricky one to kind of make up, but if you can do it, it'll help a lot. Looks like we had some nodding heads, so I'm going to assume people are figuring that out. So I'm going to move on to the next example. So in the next page, copy your same couple of words you had on the left and right. Again, we're going to do this a few times, but now we're going to focus on the top and bottom words. Okay. So now I want you to go back to your how section and your who section. And I want you to pick one of those phrases or words that you most resonate with for your brand and put that up top on page 15. Does anyone want to share what they're picking for words, just so we can get an idea?
Say it one more time. How will we decide which? Okay.
Yep,
From
so
the how and the
you're going to go to like your how page or your who page or both, and just look up in there, which one resonates the most with you? Like, yeah, that's a strong, that's a good one. I want to use that one, okay? And put that up top on your chart for you. Does that make sense? Okay. And then, same thing as last time. Down below, you're going to try to pick a word that a competitor would pick that's different than your word, maybe the opposite, maybe just slightly different. That's okay. And just make one up and put it there. If you can't think of one, just do the opposite. The quick way. Looks like some of you are thinking of that and moving forward. Great. Oh yeah, this was literally one of the things.
Yeah.
last time. All right, so when you go to your next page, once you have your 4 words, fill out your 4 words again. I apologize, you're gonna have these beaten into your brain. But what you want to do here, if you look at my screen, we have an example of one fully filled out with competitors and their own brands. So I believe the person we were doing this with perhaps last time, and they were on the top left. The idea is your brand should be somewhere on the top left. And all your competitors, you're going to want to put them somewhere in this map of, or graph, chart, whatever you want to call it, of these words. Does that make sense how I'm kind of graphing those out? And the idea is to do this exercise with whichever words you need to, so that you find where your brand stands apart from everyone else, or at least far away enough from everyone else that you can be seen as different, special, valuable. So in the example I have on the screen, I think this had something to do with real estate or
Yeah, it
something
looks like it's
realty.
real estate, yeah.
But their competitors were things like Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com. This was a human being, not an app. So
Mhm.
for them, they wanted something personable and relatable, right? So they were in the top left because of that. But apps were informationally generalized, so they went bottom right in this
Yeah, I'm
example.
starting to remember this.
Yeah.
Yep.
something like-
Yep.
Does this make sense? Are there any questions? Does anyone want to spend this last minute or two talking through theirs as an example?
Are we shooting for the upper left-hand corner?
Yours should be in the upper left if you did it the way I placed the words. yes.
Mhm.
And it probably is going to be like a big circle region, like you're not going to be a like dot, but you might fill in a whole area up there. You know what I mean?
I'm just concerned because
What's up?
how are you gonna choose, like, your who's? You choose between your who and your how, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah, so that's the hard work here, right?
Okay,
So this takes time, and I don't expect anyone to have this figured out in 5-10 minutes,
Okay.
right? So I'll spend hours with my team to figure this out for our clients and bring it back to them,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So you might go through your words and go, well, let me try with this word.
That's what I was gonna
Okay.
ask. Would you
Let me
ever
try.
find yourself using different configurations, different words?
Yes, so you might put in your first word that feels the most right to you, but then you realize, oh man, it's very similar to these competitors. It doesn't actually make me separate and different and positioned separately from them enough. So you might swap your words. You might choose different core values until you find something that makes it and have a different perceived value. Does that help clarify a little bit?
Yes, so if what you end up with is a little, it doesn't give you a unique position, then try something else.
Exactly. So if anybody's not hearing that, if you are doing this exercise and you feel like your brand is not far away enough from these other bubbles of competitors in this, then you might want to try different core values on the top or bottom or left and right to see what other core values or reasons why or whatever it is that makes your brand unique. It looks like Jordan, you raised your hand. I don't know if that's from before or if that's new.
It's new. I just had a quick question.
Yes.
How specific do you need to be with the target market, the who? Like, do you need to go down to granular, like people
Nah.
of the age?
No, only if it makes sense for your brand. So I don't know if you all heard that, but how particular do you have to get with your target markets? When it comes to this sort of chart specifically, you don't have to be that specific because there might be other factors that might be enough to make you positioned differently than your competitors. So it's really dependent on each and every single brand. Fortunately, you'd have to figure that out for yourself.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Great question. So we are at time. I am going to spend an extra 2 to 3 minutes if anyone can hang out just to kind of wrap this up a little and talk about what's next for you guys. That's cool. Great.
Yeah, and I just want to let everybody know really, really quick
Yes.
that if I hold office hours on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, you can find that on the library website, which I'll put into the chat. Oh, I did put it in the chat. Okay, cool. If you want to come and bring your workbook for that office hour time, go ahead and do that. If you would like to contact Rick, you may do that as well. But I am available for office hours, and especially for our cohort members. Can definitely work on that.
I would say for those that are in the cohort, I'm willing to give like a 30-minute or 40-minute free consult, but please go through Giulia to request that. Yeah, well, the idea would be to go through your workbook together and to help you clarify your brand positioning statement, which I'd like to speak about right now as we wrap this up.
Oh, go ahead.
So there is this section. We're not going to spend time on it now. This is for you for homework. If you've gone through the what, the how, the who, and the why, this let's analyze section has a lot of different ways that you can look at your chart that you made and try to analyze, like, what is the difference? How do I define mine based on what I see, right? This will give you a lot of examples of how you can look at that data and interpret it to get some unique insights for your brand. And these are common ones that I see when we do this for our clients. So you kind of have the cheat sheet right here. This is a lot of valuable information. Please, please, please try to use it for yourself. And I'm sure Giulia will be more than happy to go over that with you as well with one of her sessions. And then lastly, blah, 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 blah. There are a couple examples of something called a brand positioning statement. I'm gonna hang out for as long as you let me to kick me out. If anyone wants to stick around for an extra couple minutes to create their brand positioning statement, it's just Mad Libs. So it's literally, you place a couple of words in a couple of spots to create a sentence. So for example, what we have going on here, I'll use my own company of Krative. So my brand name is A. Krative provides my target market, small business owners, with C, what is my value proposition, the thing that I offer, brand strategy for small businesses, by, and my how, right there, by defining core values and target markets. So there's my brand positioning statement. Easy, just fill in the blanks. Because we already did all the work on the previous pages, you just fill this out. And there's a couple versions of it. So there's this simple one here, and there's a little bit more nuanced one here. I would definitely encourage you guys to try to please come up with your brand positioning statement when you can, because this will help you to clearly define what you do, who it's for, and what makes you unique in a sentence, which is powerful.
It'll make everything else easier as you're doing your business plan,
Yes.
as you're doing, yeah.
Any business decisions, or should you offer some new products or services, check out your brand positioning statement. Is it in line with that? No, maybe not. Right? Yes, great, do it, absolutely, right? So that's pretty much it for this workbook. Again, anybody who has follow-up questions, please follow up with Giulia. I'm sure she'd be happy to provide any sessions of guidance or whatever it is, right? I don't know how you word that. And again, if you are in the cohort, I'm willing to offer a 30 to 40-minute consult as well. So please go through Giulia for that if you don't mind. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
please.
you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
And thank you,
Appreciate it.
Rick, for your time.
Absolutely.
Especially.
Yeah, very welcome. I enjoy it. So,
That horrible.
yeah. Nice little
Turn you off, so.
little halftime show right there.
Not really.
Yeah, no
All
problem.
right, everybody have a, oh, you know what? I'll stay on as long as we can.
Thank
and
you,
then,
Jordan. Thank you, Letitia.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And I'm gonna hang out for a couple moments. If anyone does want to reach out to me personally, my
Yeah.
business
Oh, so go
website,
ahead.
krative.com, I'll put it in the chat. You can reach out to me there.
Gotcha.
Julie, do you want to like wrap up any closing statements?
I'm just trying, first I'm gonna figure out how to do the Facebook Live.
Got it.
I'm like, oh
Are
my
you trying to
goodness.
stop it?
Oh, the more.
Tech issues, everybody.
Go into the mores.
Yes, that's true.
Lurking.
Lurking. Professional, yes.
Yeah. We're good.
Great. Awesome. And I will stop the recording.
Yes.
Great.